Well, there you go. The door. So here we are at the committee conference room to Wednesday, the 5th of October. Welcome you all to that, and the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
Chair, I haven't got any apologies. I don't know if I was received from Gordon Castle.
Gordon,
Oh, there he is.
Right, my dear. Yeah. There we are. So we are all here now. It's excellent. Glad to see you all. Second item on the agenda is the minutes of the meeting place on the 31st of August 2022. I agree, I sign them with the record. Great. I'm the guy who agrees, so I'll just take that. Thanks. The next is disclosure of members' interest. We all know what we have to do there.
I'm not sure I need to declare this now, but I'm on the board of
Yeah.
I don't
I think that's why you're here, Jeff. So that's why you're here. So
it is, so as long as you
don't need to declare an interest.
not that I'm going to say very much.
Yeah, you haven't seen the list of questions we've got for you. Anyway, so there we are. Forward plan of cabinet decisions.
I don't have anything to add from the last meeting, which I think most things are listed for this committee.
Is everybody happy with that? You don't think the whole, but anybody wants to comment on that, which is fantastic. Thank you all very much. We're now up scrutiny. Yeah, right.
I don't know if this is the right place to bring up maybe a future scrutiny. I'd like to look at the relationship between contractors that work for around Northumberland and how the relationship rolls into NCC maintenance, road and highway repairs.
That's something that's shown.
If we apply in the services,
yeah, apparently it is.
It's mainly linking up with electric boards, gas board, utilities, all types of utilities that work within Northumberland.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll make a note of that.
It's certainly something we've had in the past, but not for 1 year.
Right, well, there we are. Perhaps it is something we look at. Thank you for that. And so we're now at the scrutiny item in 5.1, is the Northumberland Destination Management Plan. I'm not going to say we're going to endorse it before we've actually scrutinized it, if that's all right with everybody. And I think how this is going to work, Nigel, you're going to kind of lead us through this. We've got a presentation at some point, Neil is here to answer questions, and I don't know whether Jeff Watson wants to say anything.
Can I get support? I'll let Nigel do his thing, but if you don't mind, just well, really the reason that I came here, because I've seen the management plan, it's brilliant. I think you'll agree it is too. I just want to give you some facts because it's a very interesting business that a very important business to Northumberland, the tourism. You won't get all these, but 6.298 million visitors we had, day visitors we had last year. 1.492 million overnight visitors last year. 581,431 million overnight expenditures. £32 average day spend. £288 average overnight spend. How important is this to the economy of Northumberland? It is without doubt our biggest industry with 11,000 people employed by tourism. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that we do this, handle it effectively with due regard to the residents of our beautiful areas, as well as the visitors that comes to it. And this destination management plan, which they're going to hear all about, I think we'll take care of it. And after that, Jeff, I don't think it's anything.
Thanks, Jeff. So I saw Nigel crossing out loads of stuff there. Anyway,
you're not wrong, actually, Chair. There, you're not wrong.
No, floor, George.
Thank you, Chair.
This bit's about 15-20 minutes, I think, for the presentation and all that. And then obviously you've got as many questions after that as you like. Nigel.
Thank you, Chair, Deputy Chair, members for the invitation. Thank you. I'll provide a short introduction before we hand over to Morgan McAllister, who's joined us virtually, who will give a presentation overview of essentially what's in the report, a summary of that for you. So I'm Nigel Walsh, I'm the Interim Service Director, overall responsibility for tourism. I'm joined by Neil Carney. Neil is a Strategic Tourism Manager with NCC, and we're joined remotely by Maureen McAllister, our Head of Tourism. So as Councillor Watson quite rightly said, the significance of the tourism sector for the county is immense. And it's recognised duly in the Economic Development Strategy 2019 to 24. It's actually recognised as a key industrial growth opportunity alongside agri-tech, advanced manufacturing, healthcare, life sciences, offshore wind and subsea. We're undoubtedly now recognised as a leading UK destination following a period of absolutely unrivaled growth in both the visitor numbers Councillor Watson described and the value of tourism, the money people spend and the jobs it creates. It's not always been a positive trajectory in terms of visitor profile and numbers. In fact, in 2012, 8.9 million people visited the county, which sounds significant. It was actually a fall of 2% on the previous year, 2011. And in the same year, visitors spent 707 million, which is actually a fall of 4% on the previous year. So at this point, we absolutely recognise the potential of tourism, and we have to start to work to really harness that. So a 6% growth target was set for both visitor numbers and visitor expenditure that would be achieved by 2016. So if we look to 2016, we welcomed 9.7 million visitors, which is actually 9% from 2012, and they spent £852 million, which was up a phenomenal 21% on 2012. So the 6% was absolutely surpassed. There's a number of factors contributed to that. Essentially, that's the spurting growth. It's a very material factor, but most of you remember the Tales from Northumberland and Robson Green, further Tales from Northumberland and Robson Green. We had 3 ITV series that featured Robson as he travelled the county. And essentially that was going into people's house, that was going to people's household, over the clock on the Monday night, prime time, HD ITV. So that's phenomenal advertising. We couldn't have, so at the time, whatever you do this year, just get behind that and do everything we can to support that production. Okay, so then we fast forward to 2019, the last normal year we had prior to the pandemic. The visitor numbers topped 10.68 million, and the visitors actually spent over 1 billion, 1.047 billion pounds. So this is, obviously this is incredibly positive. In the context of this growth, there's an absolute challenge to continue to grow that private sector investment that attracts people, to creating those conditions, also to the balance between being an attractive, vibrant destination, also recognising, serving the needs of the environment and our residents and communities. It's that balance we've got to achieve going forward. Okay, so that is key to what the destination management plan and essentially what it's trying to spell out, how that will be achieved. So if it's okay now, Chair, I'll hand over to Maureen, who will take you through a short presentation.
And I'll move. That's probably the best idea. Yeah, with people who go to school.
Thank you, Chair.
All right. All that struggling under the wire in the first page was a waste of time. Right, fire away.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry I'm not there, but I was there last week, but I couldn't expect you to change your meeting just for me. Okay, so I'm just going to run through this presentation, and I'm going to do the horrible next slide, please. So forgive me for it. Just as a little bit of background, it's important to say that in the years that Nigel was just talking about, we were operating as 2 really separate organisations. So we had Northumberland Tourism and we had Northumberland County Council, who were both delivering some elements of the tourism piece. So I was brought in as a consultant in 2020 or 2021, can't remember, it's all a bit of a blur, to revisit actually what we were doing in Northumberland and what the potential was and what we could do. And some of the recommendations that we put forward were to have one organisation, to make sure that there was somebody leading that organisation, and for the council and for Northumberland County Council to support that organisation, not with a 1-year service level agreement, but with a 2-year robust partnership agreement, to actually go into this in partnership. So it was no more them and us. It was very much something that Northumberland County Council was behind. There was a recommendation that actually, why are we spending money on separate premises when it's a small team? We can have much more fleet of foot arrangements, particularly because we need to get out and about in the county. So why don't we base ourselves at County Hall? Let's have an absolutely clear business plan for the organisation, and a really robust board with a succession plan, and not just with people on the board that were going to be board members for a couple of years, but also strategic advisors, so people from industry that could actually come in and support the board, to make sure that they were focusing on the right areas of the economic picture and the community picture, and the cultural picture, everything that that tourism impacts upon, and that we would really boost our local, regional and national connections, really get ourselves out there and in front of people that mattered. And you'll see on this slide there are loads of ticks because we've done it. We've met, there is Visit Northumberland's now in place, and that you'll see the team within County Hall. I'm in place. Can I assure you that I didn't write the strategy in order to get a job? I am absolutely passionate about Northumberland, and Nigel will give you the background, that this was the last consultancy job that I ever did, and I'm absolutely committed to getting this moving forward now and taking this forward, and I'm delighted to actually have the proper role as head of tourism. Can I have the next slide, please? I'm sorry this is a bit blurred. It's not your eyes, it's my fault. So Jeff will probably fire me after this presentation. Sorry it's a bit blurred, but we'll give you a copy of our business plan. It's crystal clear in there. So we're focusing now as a team on leadership and engagement, on really working with the industry on the things that they need and they want to go forward. We're working on increasing the quality of visitors over the quantity. So we're not talking about getting masses and masses and masses of people in, but we're getting people in who are going to stay longer and spend more money. We're really working to make sure that any products we develop are sustainable, and that anything we develop for the destination is sustainable. We're using the evidence base much better, so we're making sure that everything is underpinned by clear evidence before we launch any campaigns or before we look at any kind of investment or development. Our marketing and promotion, you probably see more of that than you see any of the other stuff that I'll talk about today, because it's in your face. So we've done TV advertising, we've had some brilliant news coverage, and we've got some great campaigns running. And if anybody wants to see campaigns later, then after this meeting, then I'm happy to send them through. And finally, we're really focusing on developing people and businesses. You saw the numbers of people, or you'll see in a bit again, the numbers of people that work in the industry, but it's really important that we train those people, not just in terms of how they deliver service, but how they actually understand Northumberland and how they can take Northumberland forward, so that those visitors that come in to see them. So you'll see the three main pillars that we have. We have partners now who actually pay to work with us, not just for advertising, but for a whole range of different services that we offer. We've got a whole range of things that we focus on, and as you can see that outlined on that slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so they've, as always, Councillor Watson and Nigel have stolen my thunder. So they've gone through the slides with all of the facts and figures on them, but it's really great. They're really crunchy numbers for you to look at and see that we are actually recovering. And we're not back to the levels that we were at, but we're making a really strong recovery, and it looks really positive. The businesses that picked up new visitors, are keeping them, and people are coming back, and people are talking about holidays to Northumberland now more than they ever did. We did attract a whole range of different people when they couldn't go anywhere else, and I think we probably keep about 30% of the new visitors that we had. The other 70% are welcome to go back to some of the other holiday resorts that they went to, because we probably weren't exactly the right fit for them. So now people can explore more. It's great to see people are returning and recommending Northumberland, which is what we really want. So next slide, please. So you can see this was a survey that we ran in 2021. 100% of people felt welcome when they came into Northumberland. 98% would visit again, but 99% would recommend visiting Northumberland. We're just going to track down that 1% who wouldn't recommend, and we'll have a chat with them. But it's really good to see the distances that people are travelling and where they're coming from, but also the booking patterns. So we can see that people are actually now planning to come here and want to come back to Northumberland. So that's really important for us. So based on all of those things that we did, the potential of the visitor economy, the potential of more visitors, more quality visitors, people staying longer, it's really important that we manage the destination properly, so that we can manage the more cars coming in, we can make sure that the products are right, we can make sure that people are trained and people are ready for visitors, and that the destination, the communities are ready for visitors. And that's why we have produced a destination management plan. So can I have the next slide, and then very quickly the one after? Thank you. Okay, so the destination management plan we've been working on now for about 18 months, and I think probably most of you will have heard of it or seen it, or it's come past your desks. But it's basically, it's not Northumberland County Council document, and it's not a Visit Northumberland document, it's Northumberland's document. So there's a whole range of stakeholders that have worked with us to look at actually what we need to do to make sure that Northumberland is developed and maintains its visitors, but also maintains the economic impact that visitors bring, and also work with the communities and work with businesses to make sure that we don't get anything wrong, and that we're managing people into car parks, and that we're managing public toilets, and all of the whole range of things that we have to respond to as a destination as our visitor numbers increase, or as our visitor numbers drop off. What is it that we need to do as a destination to bring more people in, whether that's having trains that can take more bicycles if we're encouraging bicycle tourism, or whether it's improved walking, footpaths and walking if we're trying to encourage more walkers into the area. So we've developed the destination management plan. And it really gives now prioritised actions, not just for Visit Northumberland, not just for Northumberland County Council, but for key stakeholders. It identifies them, and it actually helps us to work with them to make sure that they're putting the right resources in the right place, and that we're maximising any kind of economies of scale that we can. And we're all working in the same direction. Can I get the next slide, please? So the key areas of focus are obviously around data, evidence and intelligence. And that's not just the STEAM survey that you saw in the visitor survey, it's everything that we look at. And that can be from economic data that the council collects, through to business surveys that the local chambers collect, through to data that a visitor attraction may collect about its visitors that come in, how long they stay for, how much they spend, whereabouts they come from in the country. And what we're working up then from that across the whole of Northumberland is how we best put all of that into the data sausage machine to really enable us to get a really clear picture of what our potential is, and where we best can target marketing, what products we need to develop, etc. So everything will not just be led by the evidence of the few surveys that we've always done and Visit Northumberland, but it'll be led by a whole range of data that we'll be capturing. And I think the important thing on that is intelligence. We'll be using that data not to justify what we've done done, but to give us the intelligence to actually say this is what we need to do and this is why we need to do it. The second priority is around destination infrastructure and connectivity, and that's everything from roads to potholes to signage to potentially new hotel buildings, whatever it is, a whole range of things in terms of developing the destination in a sustainable way, what needs to happen and what we need to do. The third one is around position and profile, and that's not about marketing particularly, that's about our profile as a destination and how we communicate what we are and what our values are as a destination. And that can be anything from the love it like it's yours through to the countryside code, where we're positioned in the country, how easy it is to get to us, you know, who the key stakeholders are. So it's not individual marketing campaigns, but it's actually how we bring all of that together. And the final thing is around business, product and people development. So that's how we develop the businesses, how we work with businesses to make sure we take the knowledge and data that we've collected and we get them to develop their businesses, whether it's building a bicycle store or whether it's building tree houses. You know, the businesses are investing now based on the evidence intelligence that we're giving them. Product development, very much around those things that are going to bring the right people here to enjoy their visits to Northumberland, and also people development, and that's what we talk about in terms of getting kids into work in tourism, and to understand that there's a whole range of careers that they can get involved in, and it's not just a part-time job, but actually there are other part-time jobs that people can work in within the industry. So there's a whole, they're the four main priorities of the destination management plan. So can I get the next slide, please? So what we've got, the process now to take this forward is we have an action planning forum, and the key businesses, about 80 stakeholders and businesses are invited to work with us on that. The different priorities are led by different stakeholders, and small immediate action plans now are being taken forward to actually deliver. So for example, under evidence and intelligence, there's a piece of work going on and matrixing out all of the data that we have to make sure that we are using it as effectively as we can. So those action planning forums, we've had 2 of those now, and they're fantastic. I mean, I've been around a lot, and it's been one of the greatest ways of taking forward a destination management plan that I've seen, and the commitment from businesses and from stakeholders is fantastic. So we report back to our partner meetings. So we talk to our partners about the key actions so that they can see how they can align their business development with the sort of the headline stuff that's coming out of the destination management plan, but also they can feed back. So it's always an opportunity for businesses to feed back, to say that there's an issue or there's areas that they'd like more help on. And then finally, all of this gets reported into a destination management plan board. So we have the Visit Northumberland board, but we also have a destination management plan board, and that's made up of a range of different stakeholders who will actually hold people to account if things aren't being delivered or if people aren't working in partnership. So it's completely independent to all of us, but it enables us to really get this plan for Northumberland moving forward. And the next slide, please. So as I've just said, that's where we are. Sorry, I raced ahead of myself. So that's where we are. We've had 2 of the action planning meetings there once a quarter. The destination management plan board is just about to be launched, and we're making a connection between the strategic advisors that we have on the Visit Northumberland board and the strategic advisors that we have on the destination management plan board, so that we've got the right people who can not only look into the granular detail, but can also help us to open doors, whether it's to train companies companies, or whether it's to people that want to dig up roads or whatever. So there's a whole range of work that's been going on. What we will be doing is reporting. Obviously, the reports will come through to the Visit Northumberland board, but they'll also come through to Northumberland County Council on what's happening and where we're moving forward. And the support we've had from colleagues in the County Council has been second to none. So we're working closely with our colleagues in planning and our colleagues in data and intelligence as well. So we're trying to join it up as much as we can. And I'm sorry, that was probably a bit too long. So thank you.
No, that was excellent. Thank you. I think what we're going to do, Maureen, we're just going to kind of hand back to Nigel if you want to try and coordinate questions and stuff rather than continually trying to speak to Maureen. Is that all right?
That's absolutely fine, Chair. And thank you, Maureen, for delivering that pretty much on time.
Yeah.
Okay, can we, through the chair, then can we invite questions?
Yeah, of course you can. Take the seat back. Questions, anybody, or are you all? There we are, Councillor Gill.
Thank you very much. Can I just say thank you very much for the briefing and all the background papers as well. And it is exciting for Northumberland because tourism has changed in the last 20 years since I've been, 28 years since I've been involved in it. And one of the various questions I'd like to ask surrounding that, I can say, and I think I'd say that the expansion of tourism on the East Coast has been quite substantial. And I mean, Amble and all the lovely places you can eat and everything else, and people coming to visit in caravans and a lot of people I know, great, will go to the coast, and it really is good. But having said that, it does bring with the issue of parking and what a lot of people will talk about. I think what I was going to ask you was when you have the breakdown of all the figures, so there's three things. First of all, can I just say, I think it's a wonderful plan. All these types of plans take a long time to evolve. And I did ask a question earlier on of Councillor Watson about the consideration of a 3-year financial report rather than just a 2-year, which would give the destination management plan a real ability to focus on a 3-year plan without rushing, knowing they had a 3-year plan or financial backing behind them. That was one thing. When you're dealing with things, and I come from the west of the county, obviously I was very involved with Kielder and Hadrian's Wall. I'm not sure how the development and the visitors to Hadrian's Wall, whether they have actually been stagnating over the years. I don't know, and I would like to know because I don't see any movement there. I don't see lots of people walking on the wall, but it would be good to see how many people are actually coming in from Norway, etc., and from abroad who are actually walking the wall as they used to. And I know with COVID, the last 2 or 3 years might be slightly difficult to put the numbers about my, obviously all the numbers because of COVID will be upside down anyway. So just sort of saying about the coast, which obviously is a hotbed of tourism, but I'd just like to know about the Hadrian's Wall, but also Lord Kielder I can get down. The other one thing is about the website development. And I did pop on the website yesterday and I couldn't get very far, and I thought, right, well, I'll just close it down. I'll keep it for tomorrow and just to see how you're developing the website. But the website basically is so important when you go on. When I got on, I went on to visit Northumberland, and it just said 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. So it was just, communication obviously is so important all the way through with developing tourism. And they asked other questions just very quickly to ask, and I think you probably answered that, but actually to ensure that the vision you're selling is met in delivering to the visitors who come and stay, because that's the important thing, that people come and stay and say, great, coming back next year. You've sold me a package, you're delivering that package, and it's great. So I know it's a few, but I'm just so interested.
It was 4. I counted 4 there, Councillor Dale, is that?
Yeah.
So,
Sorry about that. Can I speak? Oh, that's me.
yeah, through the chair, yes, can you have another one?
No?
Okay. I'll tackle the first one, and Maureen, Neil, feel free. The first one around investment over the 2-year period, I think it's a very valid point. And there was discussion in that meeting with Councillor Watson and Cabinet when that was agreed about the nature of the funding. They received it very positively. And we're questioning, are we putting enough actually into tourism given its benefits? Okay. But what I would like to say that 2 years, it's always previously been year by year. So these are whole new arrangements. This was just to set these arrangements off for 2 years to embed that. And hopefully we can work to a longer funded agreement going forward. But the time scale of the plan is 10 years, and it's always meant to be, it always will be a plan for Northumberland. So obviously we all hope that Visit Northumberland continues with that leadership role, but they're not the only partners in delivery of this. And what we've got with this in the action planning is each of the actions has a lead, and where possible, it actually allocates resources behind it. So it's not pure, and obviously you need the engine room, which is these guys. But so I'd just like to reassure you that it's not the future of tourism is not 100% dependent on that investment, but there's no signals that that would in any way be not the right thing to do going forward. Does that make sense? Is that okay?
I'm always asking for it.
Okay. The wall, Hadrian's Wall. It'd be an interesting one to refer to. Alongside the timescale of this, a 10-year destination management plan, there's also a 10-year investment plan for Hadrian's Wall, which again, so it does cross-reference it. I know that Janice is looking at shared prosperity and looking at borderlands and how we can actually develop similar themes to this. And I know from Neil and Maureen that the attractions on Hadrian's Wall are involved in the development of this plan also. And it's not just the involvement of attractions, it's also the fabulous thing about this is attractions will talk to infrastructure, infrastructure will talk to marketing. It's not as if we've just got sector groups. So they're bringing those links together. So there is that connectivity. So Hadrian's Wall will benefit from everything everybody else does. Third one was around.
It was about the website development, Nigel, and I'm bothered now. I'm sitting here wondering, but we have just launched a new website about a year ago. So I'm concerned if you're having problems getting onto it. But if you watch now, Neil's going to write a note that says we're going to look into that straight away. We'll get on to our head of marketing so that we can take a look at it, because I'm concerned if you haven't been able to use it, because it's fantastic website, fantastic, and it's fantastic for itinerary planning. So can we just look into that and get back to you, because obviously that causes me to go cold.
Yeah, well, can I just explain? I went on to Visit Northumberland, and all I got was, Visit Northumberland with number, sign in, do this, do that, do the other. So maybe it's the word Visit Northumberland. I don't know. I have no idea, but I can show you afterwards now. So it's very clear what happened.
Yeah. Chair, can I just say I've just put in Visit Northumberland and I've got illuminated sheet. I've got the year of event. I've got Hadrian's Wall Festival.
Okay.
Covering this one, and I haven't done anything. I just put in Visit Northumberland. Yeah, I invite you to do the same. Visit Northumberland.com and comes up with a really good one.
Okay, so I think how we're going to.
Just look at it.
Yeah, we'll hear what Councillor Dale's saying. Someone's just going to make certain that it's all right, and maybe could be a question of open a while there on.
Well, absolutely, but everybody else is, there's a lot of tourism there. So yeah.
Okay, so the fourth question is about the course.
It was value for actually delivering what your vision is.
There must have been 5 questions.
I think the
fourth was absolutely, definitely mentioned.
Yes, it's possible. That was it.
That's 3.1. I think Councillor Derry came up with before that one. It was now there's been an absolute recognition that the coast did receive high numbers of visitors, and been an absolute. I think Maureen, you can come in and listen, Neil. It's been an absolute deliberate drive, obviously not to deter people to go from the coast, but also to try and bring to the attention of people the absolute quality of attractions and environment in the interior as well. So the west, the north, west of the west, etc. So I don't know, Neil, do you want to come in a little bit about how you try to push that through a bit?
Yeah, there are 2 things with this. Obviously, in terms of the visitors to the coast, part of it was around visitor management over the last 2 years, knowing the change in demographic of visitors post-COVID. So there was a lot of effort, multi-stakeholder effort, actually looking at how that was managed, so that there weren't so many pressures on parking. So we were working very closely with local services within the council, with the Coast AONB, with a number of different partners involved in the National Trust, the Coast Guard, the police, just to try and manage the influx, as it were, of visitors. But certainly in terms of our promotional activity, we will always, and we have a campaign that's just due to go live for the autumn, which is encouraging dispersal, and that dispersal is something that we really are focusing on. So we're focusing on not just the key attractions and the key hotspots are wrong term, but the key popular places, but we're also trying to encourage more visitation to the Ford Needle Estate, for instance, or Kielder, or those sites along Hadrian's Wall. So that we are aware of pressure on the coast, but the coast is beautiful, and I think, you know, a lot of the time it's a matter of managing the expectations of what people can do on the coast and what they can see on the coast, and that will form part of all of our ongoing marketing and promotional work. Likewise, as well, within the destination planning process, a lot of the work that we're doing covers, you know, the whole rural nature of the countryside, you know, not just the coast. So we work very closely with the team up in Kielder. We work closely with a number of people and organisations around and businesses around the county. You know, the Hadrian's Wall team, for instance, as well, is a key example there. So yeah, you know, we acknowledge that it's an attractor, but we also acknowledge that it has to have proper visitor management, and that's where the destination management plan can come in, because that's where issues around parking, for instance, can be logged, and where solutions can be found. And if there are solutions within the destination management plan that help with that, that's certainly the purpose.
And yes, and I think in terms of managing that demand as well, I think Maureen pledged to me with this. She said, I want to see if I want anything that's put out there in terms of a campaign, an image, a real anything, want people to be able to realise that experience if she comes to Northumberland, not just nice images, but if somebody wants to go to ride a horse on Bamborough Beach, how they can actually make that happen. Do you remember that conversation we had, Maureen?
Yeah, yes, and I actually went out rowing in a boat at Craster, and I actually had an experience that I've actually seen images of. So yes, I'm remaining committed to it, and I did say my next adventure is on horseback. So yeah, we don't want any fake images. We want to make sure that if you see it, you can do it, and that's why the destination management plan is so important, because we're developing the products and we're not putting anything out there that's just for the camera. It's absolutely things that people can do. And in terms of developing the product, I mean, Neil's talked about how we're managing the visitors, but you know, we are looking at where we can develop products that's away from those places that are really, really busy, because there's so much of Northumberland to discover, and that we've got to make sure that if these are perfect places for people to get on their bikes or to walk, you know, or to do anything like that. So that's what the destination management plan is looking at. Where is there opportunity to develop new products away from those places that have already got enough visitors at the moment? Thank you very much. And where can you actually do the things that we're showing you the pictures of? And the marketing team are great, because I'll say to them, can we get an image of somebody sitting drinking hot chocolate by a fire? And they'll say, you can't do that anywhere. And it's really great that they're very, very loyal to the visitor as well, and loyal to what Northumberland can offer. So, you know, that's that. So it's working from both sides.
Well, perhaps that should be our new tagline, if you can see it, we can do it. Anyway.
Endless experiences, Councillor, endless experiences.
Yeah. So I've got Councillor Carty, Councillor Dodd, Councillor Castle.
Mine's just a quick one, Chair. Obviously, I'm really keen on promoting cycling in Northumberland, and I would like to see, like you've just said, a Northumberland plan. I would like to see Cycle Northumberland, right? We could look at perhaps having hubs around the area where cyclists could meet. Maybe it's where they could hire a bike, because if you're coming from somewhere, you might not have the availability to bring your bike with you, so we need some kind of hire bike clubs, right? We've got Cycle Route 1 in Blythe, we've got one of the best beaches, we've got a lovely park. And even if you had a cycle hire hub there, even if it's tagged into the community centre or some kind of cultural centre where they could meet, like there's a cycle hub on the River Tyne and it's so busy, right? But if you start Cycle Route 1, then you go down, and then you go to Warworth, then you go past and all them places, even if you had a mobile cycle hire team or something like that, where you could hire a cycle, it would be absolutely amazing. And I think we need to look at in Blythe itself, we had a massive caravan park at one time and it's gone. And over the summer they've been using Maggie's Burn. Maybe that could be the start of a business for somebody, opening up that as a campsite again. I don't know who owns the land, but it's something about bringing the urban part into the beautiful part of Northumberland as well. You know, like starting there or something like that. So we've got really good beaches and that, and I think it's an asset of Blythe, and Blythe needs to turn itself around.
Before I bring Richard in, or sorry, Nigel, with your response with Jeff Watson then?
Yeah, I think we've been in my ear about this for a while.
Yes.
We haven't got a date. It's been an awful long business trying to find the date that's suitable. Well, we've just actually confirmed it this morning.
Oh, brilliant.
3rd of November, and this will be one of the items which will be on the agenda. We've got a cycling and walking board. We are doing things in Northumberland.
Yeah.
We're doing things in a which are yet to be finalised, I think, but in the Tyne Valley, and we are doing things in other places. But specifically, the answer to your question, this will be on the agenda for the 3rd of November, and hopefully we'll be able to.
Okay, Eileen?
Thank you.
So do either of you two want to come back on that, or are you happy just to leave it?
Can I just very quickly just add, obviously, cycle tourism is really important to us for a number of reasons. Obviously, in terms of our sort of product development as a thematic approach to creating new experiences for visitors, but also new business opportunities. Cycle tourism is something that we really are getting behind. As part of our sort of approach to through the destination management planning process, we actually do have an active cycling group that meets every quarter. I think there's a meeting actually on Monday coming up, just to talk through some of the opportunities that are linked to that. We, as Visit Northumberland, are looking to create that one-stop cycling hub, the virtual hub, as it were,
Yeah.
where you can find the information about which accommodation providers have facilities for cycling, where you can hire bikes, where you can stop on a cycling route, where you can actually plot those cycling routes so that you're not having to do a great big long, all of the, cycle the all of Hadrian Cycleway, for instance, but circular routes and areas that you can actually do where cycling is a leisure activity rather than it being the sole purpose of your stay. So cycle tourism is something that we are actively pursuing. We're not there yet, I'll be honest. We don't yet have that one-stop shop in terms of the information. It would be great if we could create that platform where we could properly represent cycle tourism industry and be known for being an exemplar cycle tourism destination. That's the ambition, and hopefully the destination management plan will help us achieve that in terms of those deliveries.
Thank you.
Okay, Richard Dodd.
Yeah, I welcome it was mentioned earlier about the two organisations, Northumberland Tourism and our tourism, etc., coming together because it was a lot of duplication. So hopefully one organisation should be do better. However, we're on about this tourism in Northumberland, and there are an awful lot of pop-ups or farm conversions, shepherd's huts, you name it. They're all coming through a system now because people are either making money or want to invest and all that. My fear is that the hospitality industry, as in pubs, restaurants and places, are struggling a bit. They're struggling to get staff, they're struggling to get chefs. You can't get a chef apparently now. A lot of places without paying the earth. So I just wonder how some of these businesses are going to survive, and we come into, you know, the tourism area, and a lot of people do spend their money out at night and then during the day. I just have a fear that we're not keeping, you know, the little gems of the village pubs.
That goes to the heart of the management plan, doesn't it? So I don't know whether Nigel or you want to comment on that.
Well, I think Maureen.
Maureen, yeah. Does Maureen want to comment on that?
If that's okay, yes, thank you. Absolutely, without people, we may as well not be here. So that's why we have a whole priority, the destination management plan around people development. And that's also why it's attached to the profile and position. So it's actually saying to people, this is a great place to come and work. And this is a great industry to work in. So we're working with all of the colleges, we're working with businesses, and we're also making sure that it's a great proposition, not just in terms of, you know, you want to come and be a chef, but also it's a great place to live. It's a great place to get outdoors. It's great value for money to live in Northumberland. So all of those ways that we're positioning Northumberland isn't just for people to visit, it's also for people to consider working and staying in Northumberland. And I think when we look at the issues that we have with people trying to find chefs or people trying to find wait staff or any of those things within hospitality, it's across the country. And I think it's really important that because we're aware of that, it's how we are responding to it and how we're working with some of those great employers that have managed to keep their staff for this whole period to use some of the best practice that they're putting out there, so that people can see that it's not just one little pub they're going to be working in, it's part of a bigger enterprise, which is tourism in Northumberland. So we're not complacent in anything that we do, but we are absolutely supporting the businesses to encourage them to help them to get staff in and not to have to pay over the odds, but to pay the right salaries to get the right people in, and that's also then comes back down to valuing tourism as a proper job and a proper industry, and an industry that you can grow within. So it's there, it's writ large within one of the key actions within the plan. So I can't say that I'm going to solve it within the next 3 months, but it's absolutely something that we're focusing and we're getting businesses to focus on.
I think practically, Maureen, such issues as accommodation for staff, could there be a solution around that in terms of, you know, businesses putting together in terms of recruitment? Could businesses, big attractions, pull together the way they actually attract members of the workforce? So there is some, again, I know there's work going on more in terms of that collaboration about how we can effectively have a sector drive rather than a business drive on recruitment. Yeah.
Businesses working together. I mean, the thing is as well, for every one job, you may have 6 or 7 people apply for it, and then you may be down to the last 2. So that second person that didn't get the job, it's making sure that their CV is then shared with other people. So it's kind of sharing those employment opportunities. But it's also making sure that we help businesses to position themselves to attract the right people. But in terms of accommodation and where people live and how they get to work and all of those things, they're all really important. I mean, I live in Devon. It's the same down here. People can't afford to sometimes buy houses to then work in hospitality and get out to some of the rural pubs because there's no buses. So all of these things are in the mix. It's where do people live? What's staff accommodation like? How do you get them backwards and forwards to work? And using some of the best practice from some of the employers we have is really important. And that's what we do in our partner events. We are there to help businesses to think outside of the box, or that's a bit of a rubbish expression, but we are there to share best practice across all businesses to make sure that we can do this.
Okay, Richard.
Yeah.
Excellent. Gordon and then Brian.
Yeah, it's a brief because I have a foot in all the camps of the hospital, the businesses in Alnwick that attract tourism, 3 major world-class tourist attractions on the periphery of Alnwick. And we can't get staff for the hospitality side. It really is a struggle. And it's a curious one because we've got a fairly depressed economy at the moment. And we've got a thing called stagflation. I think that's low growth, but inflation. But getting people to get the pay it's baffling because the pay is bad. I've checked in various places in the town that are looking for staff in the hospitality trade, and they're not paying bad money at all. We're both significantly above minimum wage. So I don't quite understand how this is happening. It's to do with partly the fact that we're in the shoulder months now, when tourism starts to decline a little, and it's good to have businesses or tourism businesses that attract people all year round, much more difficult though that is. And I also think that university, going back, does take back the students who one time were working in the hospitality side, and they can't afford to commute backwards and forwards to the rural community. It's a lot. Northampton's a big county, and going from Newcastle to Alex, that's an expensive business to take out your pay packet, and that is part of the problem. So I do say this is a serious issue. It could be temporary, and I'd like to think it was temporary. And by the way, just to mention cycle helps. Alnwick has a cycle help. I'm surprised it wasn't mentioned because it's a major part of its offer. Secure your bicycles, take your bicycles. And I declare the address on the board of the youth hospital. That's what it is, a cycle help. We are getting there. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Gallagher, then Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all colleagues here for that presentation. Really good and very informative. Just want to pick up on a few points. In Councillor Watson's address, he mentioned the daily and the nightly stays of people visiting Northumberland. One thing that, and I might be missing this, but the internal visitors, people that are from Northumberland that visit different parts of Northumberland. I've been up at Scotland, up and see houses, and the reality is, I think that people very close that live in Northumberland want to be out and about and rediscover Northumberland. And that's on the back of the data that I'm getting from bus companies, Arriva and various other ones, that people now don't go to the shops, they don't go to the Newcastles, but what they want to do is go to the Holy Islands, and they'll get up there and visit. So there's that internal finance that comes within Northumberland itself on the back of COVID. Because I think a lot of people in Northumberland want to rediscover or even discover Northumberland for the first time. Ask people in the southeast part of how many people have been up to Hadrian's Wall. Ask people in Hadrian's Wall how many times have been down to Ashington, Blythe, and places like that. So there's that internal issue on the back of COVID and wanting to get out. Obviously now we've got new hurdles with the cost of living, fuel, energy, jobs. So when you mentioned a normal year, I'm unsure what a normal year is. And I'm quite sure that this isn't going to just be this winter. Next summer, it'll be for the next few years. So we have to understand the pressures that you guys have got to present something. We've also got to understand also that Northumberland is different in all the zones. For example, I've mentioned Hexham, the Hadrian's Wall, but there's also the southeast part of Northumberland that delivers a different type of visitor attraction. So it's to consider all of those points. And Maureen made a point about delivering decent wages. I totally not agree with you that we have to deliver good wages for young people in Northumberland. Thank you, Chair.
All right, you need to come back on that, Nigel, or are you just happy to?
I think we'll take those points on board, Councillor Gallagher, on that one. I mean, they're picked up in terms of day visitors, aren't they? Yeah.
And also 30% of overnight visitors are staying with friends and relatives. So that role that the resident has in referring and encouraging dispersal is really important to us as well. So for us to find the right channels to get the information to those is something that we're looking at in terms of our information strategy, for instance. You know, rather than expecting people to look online or go to a visitor information centre, you know, to give them the information at places that they're going to, restaurants, attractions, trying to expand that reach for that information. So that's a really important point. We also have an annual days out map dispersal map, and that's distributed locally here. So that's available, and it's there for, obviously it's there to give visitors that are in region information on where they can go, and clearly that's something that is a useful tool for local residents if they're out on their visits.
The team are working as well, Councillor Gallix, to really build the links between key attractions and their communities. That's something I think particularly Hadrian's Wall and communities, and looking at that. So, for example, Cragside, Rockbury, Alnwick and Gardens, and there's a lot of work going on in Alnwick, isn't there, going around that connectivity. And I think, so they have a community. It's not just seen as an attraction in a town. It is a community involved in attraction. Something we're doing a lot of work on that now.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian, Jeff wants to come in and
Just a couple of quick points. You're absolutely right. I mean, the figures that we've got show that nearly 7 million visits are day visits, which essentially means, the borders to Durham or something. As against 1.5 million overnighters who aren't probably going to be similar. But what we're trying to do, like an all-inclusive package in the Visit Northumberland board. We've got people who live all over the county, the West, Cramlington, Berwick, my part of the world, but we've also got representatives from all of the different types of businesses in there. So we've got them from Needle and Pins, for example, a little shop in Humble Street who sells wool to visitors too. The chairman of the board is the general manager of Slaley Hall. We've got somebody from Ashington Tourism College. They're on the board. So we're not just concentrating on Leicester and Bamburgh. We really are looking at the whole thing, and also realizing that it's over 41%, I think, what the figures I saw, are day visitors, and we know that's where a lot of the money comes from, and we've got to make sure that we're doing that right. So, yeah, I think your point is well made, and I hope we're taking care of it.
Thank you.
Councillor Carr.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. It was really good, and I'm really pleased to see we do have a destination management plan for the next 10 years. I'm really pleased to see that. I'd just like to point everyone's attention to page 17 at the bottom in key issues. You look halfway down, I'll read it out. Whilst ensuring that the ecosystem and infrastructure that supports the sector in terms of the attractors and associated visitor experience across Northumberland is maintained and improved in balance with the needs of our residents and the environment. So obviously Councillor Whelan's, Councillor Carter will know in my ward, I will see thousands people coming every year. And that's got to explode with the new beach development we've got. But when you look around the beach, as attractive and as amazing as it is, you can see, the issues here and there. You can see the cracks, you can see the timber, the promenade, that, year on year, which is improving with our own financial member schemes. But will we see any financial investment in Bly, and not just Bly Beach, but the coastal areas as well, as to meet with the key issues where it says ensuring that the infrastructure to support the sector is maintained and improved? Will there be financial investment from this council for that?
Well, that's a hell of a question, Danny. I'm not certain whether Nigel can answer that.
I think what I can say is probably not the exact answer we're looking for, but what we can say with confidence, Maureen, is that we've got the Director of Local Services is key to one of the work streams in the action planning group. So with that in place, the investment opportunities that come through local services, you can absolutely be aligned with what those opportunities are and what the issues are facing from a visitor perspective as well. So that's probably, Councillor Carr, the best way I can probably say. I can't look to outline a pattern of investment for you, but the lead who can manage that investment will be aware of the needs, if that makes sense to you. Is that okay?
Can I just come back on that?
Of course you can.
Yeah, just because obviously, we talk to residents and they always say to us, we put out an amazing message of how great our beach area is, but we know down on the ground that we can see where the issues are. And obviously it says that the fact that they will be maintained and improved, we just like to make sure that if that's the key issue, actually in the document, that will be the case for the next 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll
I think
take to account on that.
Yeah, I think Nigel can know what you say, Councillor Carr, because I don't think he's actually going to check with on you to Nigel. No, we don't use checkers anymore, do we? But it's a fair point. We've got a question from councillor. What's his name again? Oh.
Your vice chairman.
God help us.
Councillor,
Hey, I'll tell you,
Well,
you're lucky I'm still standing. Go on, Mark.
Thanks, Chair. So, yeah, thanks for the positive report, and it is good that, we'll have a direction, and it is a positive report. I do have a little concern that, with the increased amount of, holiday accommodation that we've seen in our ward, that, the number of residential properties that's getting taken out, and put into holiday accommodation, not only does that affect the residential rental market, which we are now seeing a major problem with. It's also to the detriment of town and parish council funding, because they're doing pay precept. Are you interlinked with the other departments within the council that are identifying these problems? And I would say definitely following on when Councillor Carr was, that the investment needs to back this up. And the increased people coming off the coast, because that's what I'm seeing, actually people coming off the coast and more in land. We need to see the investment of the coast.
Can you answer that, Nigel? Because I didn't.
You want to go first?
As
Yeah.
a cabinet, we're aware of this. I mean, I think everybody knows the rules really. At the moment, it's a 20% occupancy of holiday homes in your parish. Then you can jump in with the new legislation that we're talking about. But there's never anything that I think will ever come in that will stop me as an individual selling my house to somebody who then wants to turn it into a holiday home. I don't see how we could ever stop it. But fury from everybody, but always restricting them selling their own property to somebody else. There is an issue for sure there, and it's something that the council are looking at. And the only real way that I've heard any live discussion that might help the situation is the amount of council tax that we charge on holiday homes, and that is being looked at. And I really would be wrong of me to say more than that, but it's certainly a hot potato, and it's something that's discussed. Was Colin, I'm sure, will back me up. It's been discussed regularly, looking for a way forward.
As long as we get the council tax increased, as long as we don't get the parish and town council precept, how are they going to, because they provide a lot of the services.
Another question, because you're quite right, it doesn't go to the parish or town council, it goes elsewhere, and how that would be managed is another issue.
Well, I've really lost control of this. Right, we've got councillor Morphy and then councillor Dale, and then I'm going to thank everybody for their contributions. And we're going to move on. Councillor Morphy.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report, Nigel, and thanks for the presentation, Maureen. Just got two quick questions. One was about something I read on page 2 of Nigel's report. It says that the county council will make £130,000 annual financial contribution to visit funding. And I was just wondering if you could explain where the rest of the funding comes from. And then if I could go to my next question before you answer the first one. We're told about the action planning groups, the action planning forum, the destination management plan board. Would members be able to have a list of who is on each of those groups, forums and boards?
Yeah, absolutely. Really do. So is it okay, Chair? Maureen, if I cover the first one off and chip in Maureen. And the second one, is it okay if I defer that? I'll give way to Maureen McAllister on the second one. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So the councillor Morphy, in terms of Visit Northumberland as an entity, the £130,000 is, should we say, the core income. The remainder, I mean, the circa budget's probably 320, 330 a year, I would say, in terms of income, and that the rest of that comes from a membership scheme for businesses, and also the team are very successful about bringing grants in for places like Norfolk Tyne as well. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Maureen? Essentially, it's the council core contribution, it's external funding, and it's essentially the contribution from partners.
Absolutely. So we're working really hard to get businesses to join us as partners rather than just paying for a bit of advertising space, because that keeps them then year on year. But the gentleman in the stripy times, Ncaa, has done a fantastic job in securing extra funding through grants, and continually scopes out where he can bring in funding for marketing or for product development, and that's ongoing. When we've had quite a lot of success. So the council core funding, members, partners paying us a fee, and grant funding.
Maureen, do you want to pick up on Councillor Morfitt's point around, I'm sure you can list some of the sector leads for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nothing is hidden, so you can contact me at any time if you want to know anything. Probably the reason that they're not all written in this document is because it's been we've been trying to cajole some people into leading on some of these areas. So, for example, the product development area is being led by Mark Brassel, who is the chief exec of Ncaa Gardens. Andrew Fox is the CEO of Slaley Hall. He's quite active in the evidence and intelligence area. We've got Sonia Galloway, who's leading on product, on position and profile, and Catherine Johns, who's also involved there. We've got a whole range of different people who are really active and have really rolled their sleeves up and given their own time to get involved in this. The Destination Management Plan Board, we haven't got all of the final names yet, but we've got a good handful of people that are going to be starting to put that together. And what we'll do is we'll make sure that that's available and goes out with any notes of this meeting, so that you can see that. But any council member is welcome to come to the Action Planning Forum or come to the board, the DMP board meeting. In fact, it would be welcomed. So please do get in touch with us.
Thank you very much. Okay, Anne, as long as it's.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one thing, just two things. One was what people are saying, Jeff, we've got a real problem with low wage businesses, low wage working force or workforce, whether it's the social services, all these different levels are paid quite low. That's something that is really difficult, as you said, actually grow. So, you know, social services, they've got a problem.
Yeah, sorry, Anne, we're not talking about social services.
No.
I've got a question, we'll get an answer. Well, can you cut with the chase?
Right, well, can you look at that one, please, and look at it across the board, because it's not just one. The other thing is about glamping and all those things that Councillor Dodd was talking about, which actually more working with planning. If you could work with planning further to give an idea about what people can do in the rural areas as far as tourism destination, somewhere to live and stay, rather than having to use private houses.
That's a fair point, Anne. Can you just log that in your,
Yeah.
your brain? Right, so thanks for that. I'm not certain, I'm not certain that we've actually examined the plan much, but I feel as though everybody's had a good old moan about tourism, and I think it's actually, hopefully it's helped you, and you can see the intention of us all is to help rather than in there. The one thing I would just signal, which has got nothing to do with the plan, but Blythe Promenade will be 100 years old in 2028. So if you want to think about, you've got, you know, just over 6 years to think of rebuilding it or investing in it or doing something. We're at the point where it's sad. So I take it we're all, the councillors who are on this committee are happy to endorse the Northumberland destination plan, and thank the officers for their indulgence as we kind of went down every side road that was possible to go down. Okay, so I take it we're all happy to do that. Excellent. Thank you all very much. Rules here for this can go now. Be thankful. And then it's
Thank you. Bye.
we're gonna have to Thanks, Maureen. It's Helen Hines that's going to have to do us.
Are you away here? Are you back?
Thank you very much, Jack.
Yeah, I'm gonna see Nigel for a little while, I'm seeing people outside at home.
Right, then, we'll get there in a minute, Helen. Absolutely, give her a promise here.
Pardon me.
Cheers, okay. Right, then, here we are. At Storm Arm Community Resilience Update, and Hines is going to dazzle us with her please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure how to follow that, actually. It's a very different subject, obviously, that many of the committee members around the table are very familiar with because they're part of the finish group. The report that was with the papers was an update that was written at a point in time, which was the beginning of September. There has been some movement since the report was written. So I will fly through some of the points in the report, but I'll also expand on some of the work that's taken place in the last couple of weeks, which wasn't actually, is not written in the report. The chair before the meeting has also asked me to make sure that I clarify all the acronyms that I use in the report. So I do apologise for that as the ultimate report. Just to be clear, when I'm talking about utility companies, NPG is Northern Power Grid, SPEN is Scottish Power Energy Networks, which covers a small proportion of our county up in the north. NWL is Northumbrian Water. And just to let you know that in the news today, it was announced that Northumbrian Water have actually been fined £20 million due to disruption to the water supply, primarily because of Storm Arwen and the impact within Northumberland and Durham. So that's just was just broken today, that news. And BT, obviously, British Telecom. If there are any other acronyms in the report that that you need clarity on, please just me and I will do that. I think it's worth pointing out that I think this is something that we've said all the way through the task and finish group, that under the civil contingency banner or resilience planning banner, we work with these utility companies in a pretty standard way. We work through our local resilience forum partnership. That has continued to happen. We've definitely developed a strengthened relationship with at least 3 of our utility companies. I think BT is possibly the exception in some bits, which I'll come on to in a little bit. Northern Power Grid in particular have been very proactive in working with us. They were working with us to try and pre-identify some community buildings to get them ready to receive generators in the event that we have a power disruption. That work, I believe, is ongoing. However, it's been slightly overtaken by the £7.5 million energy resilience fund that they have made available to communities within Northumberland and other areas of their distribution network. It's a foundation that they're developing, which will eventually become a formal charity. They're waiting for the Charity Commission to finish the work that the Charity Commission needs to do. But they wanted to do what they're calling a soft launch in the areas that were worst affected by Storm Arwen. So that includes parts of Northumberland. And they have this £7.5 million fund. They have issued paperwork to a number of parish councils across the patch. And I'm aware of at least 11 bids that have either gone in or are about to go into Northern Power Grid from various communities within Northumberland. And a lot of those are focused, as you would expect, on different types of backup power and how they can make the building within their community resilient to receive members of the community in the event that there's a power outage. We also established a small community resilience stakeholder group, which includes members from the 3 utility companies I've just mentioned. It's met once. That has also got members from Community Action Northumberland and the Northumberland Association of Local Councils, because we're aware that those 2 organisations are also doing a lot of work within rural communities, and we're keen to try and join up some of the policy areas we know that are going on. So if we think particularly about the warm hub work that Community Action Northumberland have actually been running since I think about 2016. They're also doing something like solar buildings, and we now also have the warm places and spaces work that has been launched by Northumberland County Council. We're keen to make sure that we join up community resilience, the work that we're doing around kind of response hubs, which would be a reactive approach, with these areas of work that are much more proactive and working with communities to make sure that they are open to look after people within their communities. Unfortunately, BT has been it's been much harder to engage with BT, and I think Sean's also found that with BT Openreach. And I do have concerns about resilience telecoms, which I'm looking at some potential solutions, but it's very much a starting point, well, not a starting point, but there's some ideas around how we might be able to enhance rural telecoms. We've been working with Northumberland communities together, and we've also actually been working with Guy Offerman's office as well, who wrote a report just after the storm, and we followed up with that with a couple of community meetings which took place last week, one on Monday in Hexham and one on Friday in Bellinger. And last week we also ran a community resilience event at Newbiggin by the Sea as well, which was organised by Northumberland Community Together and ourselves. We've had excellent response for all of those meetings in different ways. The event that we organised for Newbiggin had approximately 70 people in attendance. And because we were running it in that particular part of the county, it attracted a slightly different audience as well. So we were fortunate enough to have some representatives from the town councils who we haven't been able to work for. We haven't been working as closely with, because we've been focusing more on some of the rural challenges that we faced during Storm Arlene. The report specifically talks in paragraph 7 about preparing this month in September, which we were taking part in, which is 30 Days, 30 Ways UK. It's a social media campaign. It's been running for a number of years, but this is the first time that Northumberland has taken part in that. Unfortunately, due to the Queen's death, that campaign was actually suspended. So it's going to start again next week. It's not going to be 30 days or 31 days and 30 ways, as somebody said, but they will be running that again. So it's there's information in that campaign, different theme every day, and there's information in that campaign about how households and individuals can kind of develop their own personal resilience. And we've also, on a more local level, actually been visiting some of the parish councils as well, and community groups. So we've been at, I think we've now, if we count the workshop that we ran in Wooler, I think we've actually spoken directly to about 20 parish councils or community groups in various areas in the county. And that doesn't include the phone calls that we've received from others as well, and the invitations. So that we've got actually got a local exercise that we're running on the 15th of October in Rothbury, in partnership with the parish council there. So there's been quite a lot of activity going on, and it's been really positive. The response from the community has been incredibly positive, I have to say. But obviously there's work to do, continue to do. So the report was addressing the 7 of the community resilience recommendations that were in the overarching report. The final 8th recommendation was all around the emergency planning plan, which Andrew has got a paper that's also included in the report pack.
Lovely, thank you. We'll get to Andrew shortly, I'm sure. Colin, do you wish to?
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks, Helen. I'd like to start actually by thanking Helen, heaping praise on her, because Helen actually just joined this authority, I think 2 weeks before Arwen, so she was really thrown into the deep end. And since then, she's never stopped. And the amount of work she's been doing over and above her day job, so to speak, when she's been visiting all these parish councils, community groups, meetings set up by MPs, she never stops. And I communicate with Helen quite a bit, and I say excellent. So a big thank you to you and your team for what you're doing. But this Storm Arwen thing, Right, it was a big event that hit this county, but it hit the county. Everybody was affected, but everybody was affected in different ways. Up the coastal regions, up the Marks area, comes to me there, I know your name. And,
But you know your own name, Colin, that's the
I don't
thing.
know, I'm losing it. So, you know, there was a lot of publicity on television. Mark took one channel, Stephen Richard took the other channel, and we saw what was going on by this county. The Office of the County Fire and Rescue, local services, what was going on. So there was an awful lot that this council actually did, but unfortunately, because of the nature of the county council, where it's easy to contact us, the people out there that were affected were blaming the county council and elected members for everything, because we're easy to contact. So I'll touch on one, I think, quite important thing here, the emergency planning committee. The emergency planning committee, you might think, would have met, but we didn't meet. And I think the reason why we didn't meet was there wasn't a call from any officer, any member of the cabinet, from any elected member for it to meet, because everybody was so tied up, no matter which part of the county you're in, doing your community stuff. And I really think the emergency planning committee is more for things like when it's more localized, like a train crash, plane crash kind of thing, flooding, where you know you can't bring resources in one area. This was county-wide. So talking to Helen just yesterday, on the back of this report and all the things we've got in it about the plans, we're going to call an emergency planning committee. I'm not sure if anybody in this room is on it, but I'm on it. I'm the chair of it, and we're going to actually see how what we've got, how it's going to fit in with the emergency planning committee, and we might even play out a scenario, because even though in this report it says winter emergency communication plan, and it goes further than that. It's not just the winter. Because yes, the winter, you know, it was the start of winter when we had our cannon up in the hills and up the coast have some bad snowstorms in the winter. But we can get some serious flooding situations in the summer months. So I think it's more on the winter plan. So what I would say, and I know we've got members of the press here, is that in my experiences going around the South Tynedale area, there was an awful lot of people, even though it was the start of winter, were not prepared for winter, and they certainly weren't prepared for a storm. And in a normal winter, when you get a bit of snow, it only takes a couple of inches and the wind whips up and you've got drifts. The number of people that ring you in winter, can you do something? My road's blocked, I've got no coal, I've got no oil, I've got no gas, I've got no food, and I'm thinking, what are you doing living up here when you haven't done any preparations? You know, there's such a thing as self-help. And I think, you know, talking to Helen yesterday, the message is that the county council, along with other agencies, would do absolutely everything it can in an emergency. But there's such a thing as self-help, and people have to start thinking about looking after themselves. I'm not talking about the vulnerable people. They're the people that we and so many members of staff from the county who are out visiting the communities. But people have to start thinking about, and a simple thing like a camping gas stove, very cheap to buy, but a marvelous little bit of equipment. You can heat your soup, you can heat your beans, you can heat your water for your teas and coffees, you can heat your water with hot water bottle. And yet the number of people during our that were on to me because I have no electric, they were doomed. And these are young people with cars and jobs, the roads weren't blocked, they felt absolutely hopeless. So the message has got to go out to people that there is such a thing as self-help. So do a little bit of preparation yourself for the if there's another emergency comes along. I actually think it was an unusual storm coming from the north. It's very unlikely. We don't get storms from the north, we get them from the west. And usually, especially out in the countryside, things are designed for the storms from the west. And the trees themselves learn to grow, their root structures learn to grow to put up with gales from the west, not from the north. That's why on the Saturday morning, I think we have 300 road closures. And that well done, the local services and fire services and all the farming and everybody else who got out there, got those roads open really quickly. But I do actually have, know somebody who is a contractor that does work for Power Grid. And I think it's fair to say that everybody knows, because it came out in a report, that the state of the poles were pretty dire. Some of them were just more or less just sawdust inside. So well done, Power Grid. They have done an awful lot of work recently, and I think if we've got a similar sort of storm, I don't think there'd be half as much damage as it was. However, we've got to do this. It's insurance. And it's like any insurance, it's expensive and you might never use it, but we've got to do it. So that's what I would like to say. Thanks to all the staff, everybody, fire rescue service, local services, the staff inside this building that went out, all the councillors, you know, people like Mark, you know, went beyond and what they did up there, because it had serious structural damage. We have no structural damage, none at all. I went outside my house on a Saturday morning. I had one plastic plant pot and it was empty, blown over. That was the only damage I had. So that was what we had in that area, was this serious damp atmosphere where it's got onto the electric wires and it got big. The ice got bigger and bigger and bigger to the sheer weight touched the poles down. There was 100 poles came down from the Allen Valley across over to Durham site where the power came in. So that was a sort of different sort of damage altogether. So we've got this far. It's been through scrutiny. We're going to have this emergency plan committee when held, and other officers can pull dates together and see how it works. But basically, I think we're in a lot of better position than we are, and let's hope we never have another storm like Arwen.
Right, thank you, Councillor. You will remember that one of the recommendations of the Arwen report is that you do produce a leaflet that says you should have these things in your house. Yeah, because there is an element of, you know, if you want to live somewhere remote, you need to have a margin of error, and you need batteries and you need torches and all the rest of that stuff. So thanks for that. Can we? I see. It's Richard first, and then me.
Yeah, I mean, when we did the task and finish working group, I did say, because we always get, I think it's on this agenda, winter readiness. And you know, roads readiness. And I think we need to put the message out via the press if we can, or if the press was interested in this subject, where tiny little things, you've mentioned batteries, candles, matches, things that we used to do years ago, that we've been lulled into this sort of sense. I mean, I'm going to get my generator fired up to make sure the battery on it's still charged and all that type of stuff, because you know, you can't, I've got to practice what I preach. But I think it's, if we can get a message out that is, just do a little checklist, and you know, you might save yourself a big problem. And that was one of the recommendations that we would do in the autumn, because we're heading up to that sort of time of year.
And I think you'll find, Richard, that we are doing that, and we're taking on the notes of some people, you know, make it like, you know, make it simple, rather so it's easy to reproduce, and anybody can, any parish council can reproduce it, and it can go anywhere you like. It's not complicated. Helen.
Yeah, that was the aim of the 30 Days, 30 Ways campaign as well. So that would have gone out through social media routes. We were working with colleagues on that. And I would love to be able to come to the committee today and say we've done it and this is what we did. Unfortunately, circumstances prevented us from doing that. But we, Andrew and I, will work on making sure that that's paper-based as well, that can go out to numerous kind of community centres and areas as well.
Because that was part of the problem, Richard, wasn't it? Is, you know, if you haven't got power and you haven't got the internet, you've got no way of, you know, you are reduced to using paper.
And we also touched on local radio.
Yeah, that's in here.
Because they are supposed to provide a service.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that someone needs to revisit to say, are you up for this? And put out some bulletins and this and that. And
I think we're going to get to that shortly, actually, in the other bit of this.
And a couple of village hall types in my area have applied and successful in getting the grant. And in the scheme of things, it's peanuts. You know, £2,500 for Clappington Village Hall to get a generator to make it all compliant, so at least one building can be used in that emergency.
Excellent. Trying not to revisit the weeks and weeks was spent on, we're just, you kind of, you know, all of these things were in the recommendations that were produced, and Helen and her team are kind of working through the getting there.
Sorry,
As long as you're quick.
on this, yes. You know, you can say easy, it's easy to say you never learn. One of the things in these rural areas that went wrong was that when the power went off, there was no backup for the mobile phone masts, so nobody had any communications. And we thought that had improved, but just yesterday in the Allen Valley, there was a power outage and there was 50 odd properties off. But the phone masts went off as well. It was just, you know, it was just a few hours.
That's why BT still won't come.
No, that's right.
Because that's why there is no, you know, they don't appear to be able. I just think people don't know how big Northumberland is, you know, I think they just think that we're all, you know, anyway. Councillor Carty, then it's Councillor Morford, and it's Councillor Deal.
Yeah, just a quick one. Thank you for the report. And you know what? I'm really pleased you explained that the accruements, right? Because, right, on papers should always be a glossary of terms. Or that term should be bracketed, what it actually means, right? Because we have to read these papers beforehand, right? Which can be difficult. And ever since I've been a councillor, it doesn't matter what committee I've been on, they won't put that in practice.
So I'm glad you mentioned it at the beginning.
Yes. Keep banging on about this, and this should be brought up again, though, for all committees. Any paper that's written, it should be bracketed what the first.
It should be the first time, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have any comment to make on
No,
the?
I just want that to
Right.
go out of the church for someone to actually look at this and do it, instead of me hopping on about it, just get on and get it sorted.
It's like the same report as we've got, John Pink.
No,
Yes,
it's.
It's a special case.
Right, Councillor Morford.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report, Helen. I've got 3 quick questions and 1 potentially longer. So quick questions are, first page of the report mentions an annual winter preparedness session. Was last week event in New Building that annual winter preparedness session? Or is it? Yeah. Okay. At the top of the next page, you tell us that Northern Power Grid have been looking into supplying generators to community buildings.
Yes.
One of the town halls in my ward is supplying to the Northern Power Grid for a grant to purchase a generator.
Yeah.
Do they need to, or can they maybe rely on Northern Power Grid to supply one when they need it?
Oh, no, that's a slightly loaded question. I'll maybe answer that slightly ambiguously in saying that some of the grants that I know have been approved have been community buildings that have applied for backup generators. Now, when Mr. Glendinning from Northern Power Grid gave his presentation at Hexham, the event that you were at, he did talk about them having a number of generators on top of the ones that they usually employ that they can deploy. I am not clear what their criteria is for deploying those and how they would prioritize. So I think I don't think I know the answer to the question. I would say apply for it. I would advise the community to apply for it, understanding that then means that they are responsible for maintaining it. And allow Northern Power Grid to then make the decision about whether or not they will grant that funding, because they may decide that that's one of the buildings that they would deploy to.
Okay.
Not a very clear answer.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
So let Northern Power Grid decide.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Next quick question was to Colin, I think. So, and you did touch on this. We've agreed that the community resilience project needs to be tested by the emergency committee. And I think you said that there was a plan in the pipeline. Do you have a date for when it will be tested yet?
No, we're setting that date up.
Okay.
It was just something that me and Helen thought we better do yesterday. And because of the very congested diaries everybody's got, and the leader, deputy leaders on that committee, and you know how many meetings they've got, so we've got to find a date, and we're going to try and get it done as soon as possible.
And perhaps actually what you should do is just tell Helen to do it anytime to surprise you, to see how well the thing works.
That's a good idea.
And then everybody have to drop everything and get on with it.
As long as I can have that in writing for this.
Not from me. Right, next longer
Yeah,
question.
potentially longer question is, it's a brilliant report, but you focused on 8 of the recommendations in our Storm
Yes.
review report.
Yeah.
And so I went through our Storm review report and looked at the ones that you haven't answered, and I think there's roughly 12. So would you like me to fire those questions at you now?
No.
No, I don't think fire it out now.
Would you like to carry on monitoring them?
Yeah, that's probably the best way to go, Councillor.
Okay, so we have, I think, 28 recommendations. And I have put those all in on my planner. And those are assigned to individuals within the organisation. Unsurprisingly, the majority of them do actually rest with me and my team. There are some of those where the actual policy position of the organisation is potentially moved in certain areas where we might need to check how we're going to join up some of the recommendations. I think in particular around data and how that might interact with the inequalities piece that's now come out, which the actions around data sit with Liz Morgan anyway. So she's got the lead for inequality, so I need to talk clear about that. So I'm keeping a constant check on those. And I was conscious that I hadn't reported on all 28 of those, but the ask for this paper was to report on community resilience. Yes, I am tracking them.
And can you imagine if we'd asked to mention all 28 today, how you'd be looking at me saying, Jeff, how are you going to wrap this up for 4 o'clock? When Helen had only done 3 of them. So I think the plan is to keep bringing these things, isn't it, Sean? So Helen will be back with, you know, this is what I've done for 10 of them, or whatever. That's the plan, isn't it? We're not the Arwen report has not just been accepted and filed away. You know, we need to know that the things we've asked to be done, which the council agreed needed to be done, are being done. We're not. This isn't a motion. Things are actually going to be followed up. Things are actually going to be done.
It was just felt that it was important to have an interim report, both of this committee before we settled it. It was recognised that it would take some time to actually go through all the implementation of all the recommendations. And that would probably be the spring by the time the report would be ready to come to you. We thought it would just be important for the members to have that assurance.
That we have
Yeah, I'm probably just feeling the time is ticking because it's October, but that's fine. I also feel reassured that you're working on it, and I'll be patient.
Yeah, good man. Councillor Deal and then Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you very much for the report. Can I just go quickly through and I'll come back to the emergency planning committee. I actually thought that, I think I spoke to you when you were on Zoom maybe, where you were going through Richie, and I said, it's going back to the old Tyndale days. We actually had every village had an emergency, had all the district council had all the information about the emergency, who to contact, everything else. And it was updated every year. And I know at the time I said, have you got them? And you said no. And actually it's probably a job and a half to do. And I just wondered if you went through that, because I think that probably should go to the committee to review to see that it's up to date and things like that.
It should come here.
Well, it can come here if you want, whatever. Sorry. The second thing was basically it's about communications with county councillors. if electricity goes down or anything goes down, I only a route of one communication, that's my own telephone. And that nobody, I'm going to say out of communication, has actually emailed me or asked me, I don't know any other members have, to say, if an emergency, how do we contact you? Because that is the only way you can contact me. There's no point in emailing me or sending me anything like that. You wouldn't get code in it at all. And 5G, 4G, whatever that all goes, the whole lot goes. So that is something maybe comms might like to do, is to contact everybody to find out that exactly how you're going to contact the councillor in that ward. So that can be done. The other one was very careful about NWL, not my ward. It's actually in Colin Horncastle's ward, which is around my ward, and I had a lot of the work to do there. There was no water for nearly 6 weeks in some places. I think it was coming in, and there was also no electricity either. Going back, I can check with the water dates and everything else, because I was providing everybody with baths. That's why I know everybody was coming in for a bath, whatever. Can I come to your house with a for a bath? That's fine. But the point being was, it was very bad how NWL actually did anything about this. And you know, we all know NWL, we know people in NWL, but actually we need more of a, not just a payback for who people where the NWL would pay back and how do people apply for that. But actually, what are NWL going to do about the way they delivered water? Because actually in the rural area we are, I mean, we do have the odd springs, the majority are on mainline, and if they go down, everything goes down.
Yeah,
And that is a real problem.
We've got all of that, and all of that is kind of in the report. So I think if people have got a problem with Northumbrian water, then they've really got to do it themselves. There's nothing the council can do about making NWL compensate people.
Well, no, the
can we
government's
try
saying
and
that.
can we try and stick the questions about the report rather than?
It was sorry, but it was Helen who brought it up, not me. So that was
So in response to a question about the number of community buildings that we've got on record, we have about 90, but I am conscious that there are potentially gaps in there, but there's an element of I don't know what I don't know. So if people are aware, I could share the list with members on this committee, so you can see where what buildings I've got, and I put some that are missing. So that's one thing, but we are relying on community buildings. Well, I would say self-nominating, but also being prepared to act in that role, because they are a community building, so we can't necessarily force them to do that. But I do think that bidding for the NPC funding, and they should be on the list, because then we know that they've got the power. With regards to the NWL and the compensation, I really don't have much more to tell you about that. That was just a headline I was breaking this morning. We are aware that we need to work closely with NWL so that we can pre-nominate places within communities where they can distribute water, which links back to the point about community buildings. If we're clear about what community buildings we're using, we can share that information with the water company, the electric company, anybody else, so they know that they can deploy their assets to that building as well, and it then becomes a much more useful community hub for the people in that area who are.
I think the big thing with the area is that they're so fast with the getting actually, you know,
I really do think that people don't appreciate how big.
No, they don't.
Northumbrian is. You know, kind of until you're actually here and realise it's going to take you an hour and a half to drive to Berwick. People just got no concept of, and especially when you see on things like Vera on the television, where she's standing on the prom and the next minute she's back home at Orley Island, you know, like. Anyway, Councillor Gallagher.
Great, thank you very much, Alan. Excellent report. And I really enjoyed being involved in the task and finish group. And I know that's not finished, it's an ongoing program or animal, should I say. One of the things I wanted to say was I very much welcome the address that you did down in Newbiggin and invite the parish councils. I think that should be widened in the southeast part. And my reasons for that is we spoke about the rural, but the urban areas suffered dramatically as well. And they suffered in a different way. And probably even in a more dangerous way, because there was gable lanes, there was roofs off, there was people, and it's fine to say that, you know, you're grouped together, but we really took a hammering. So I'd like you to push that project further out. And if you were in at the beginning of the meeting, I asked for the chair to look at the forward plan and bring in the utility companies and work around highways. And I think in your address, what you said was you work and you communicate with them on a standard way. I would like to see that standard way improved to a good way. And I know that it's not from Northumberland County Council, but there should be a shameful address to them to come back to the table and communicate for the people that they serve, and dare I say, for the people that pay their bills as well. So the reality is, you know, for one organisation not even come and address it and realise the problem, the work in partnership is a shame in itself. So thank you, Chair.
That's all right. And Councillor May then.
Got it.
Thanks, Chair. I wrote it down.
Yeah, I want to thank Helen and all the team for coming up to all and doing that. I have to share comments and you and the team and how well it's worked and how many conversations we've had over the and the guidance I've had, and it is great. The meeting that I was at was very well received. It's now parish councils, and it's inspired them to look at their own ways of responding. And I think that we do need to know that it's not just the rural areas. I totally agree, Brian. It is every area. Everybody in Northumberland needs to be prepared and be able to look after themselves. And that must also get passed to every parish council and town council. They also need to be prepared on how they will respond to their community. It's not just it's, you know, just rural or just you know, not rural that needs to look at this. I'm really pleased that the planning committee is going to come, because I think that could have been a benefit potentially in Storm Armour. And I think that that will give a good link between councillors and staff. And I think that's good. And if the village hall list that you've got already could be shared with all county councillors, make sure everybody in their ward, if they haven't got one, they identify one and work with them to build one. And the ones that has got one, we can see an area, can link with yourself and see how we can do that. And I think that really does tie in with the warm hub and warm spaces. Because potentially going into this winter, we need to be looking at if there is large areas where we haven't got a warm hub or a warm space, how we transport people to a warm hub and warm space if we need it. So I think that all links together. But yeah, good report.
Excellent. Thanks. That brings it all together, I think. So thanks, Helen. We appreciate that. I think we do want you to keep coming back to us, telling us where we are with our 20 recommendations. If you can kind of just leave it with Sean when you think you come back and say, actually, all this is complete. So, you know, thanks, and just keep up the good work. Thank you very much. And in time, sorry.
If I can just say thank you to everybody on the committee for their support. It's been really great working with the activities and getting support.
Well, it's a pleasure to see you, as you. And it's Andrew going to regale us with a tale of the winter communication plan. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you, Chair. So I wasn't listening going over the whole plan. I'm sure you will have a chance to have a look at it. Just really flag a few key points. Just for a start, I think what Councillor Hornfastle said was useful, although it's entitled Winter Emergency Communications Plan. You know, you can chop off the word winter and use it for any number of emergencies, from flooding to droughts, you name it. So that's a good point. And I think from our perspective, from Com's perspective, you know, there was a lot of good work went on over there in that period in November, December. We were at the centre of a regional and national focus for 12 days. I appreciate there was residents and communities that sat behind all that media spotlight, but we were certainly up there. Some of the tactics that we implemented, worked very well, I think. We touched on the flyers that were produced for thousands of residents who didn't have any power or communications that went out there. That's being finessed as we speak, just to make sure we have that ready for this winter, should it be needed. There's a lot of good use involving local members and using them as media spokespeople where appropriate. Councillor Mather was again in the thick of that. That worked well. And just some of the daily briefings we're doing for media staff members work well, but I take on board what Councillor Dale said in terms of, for some members, they might not be getting that through. We need to work out, what's the best way for them to get information. So moving forward, I just highlighted a line in the background which I thought was quite useful in terms of people expect information in the way that best suits them, and increasingly they expect to access information wherever they need it, which is easier said than done when there's no power or communications. So moving forward, we'll look to, build on what went well and what we could improve. So I'll just highlight three things. It's been touched on by Councillor Dodd. We want to work more closely with local BBC, particularly radio, around communicating in a crisis, which is their commitment to warning and informing communities and working with us and others in these kind of situations. Our first meeting was scheduled, unfortunately, shortly after the Queen's death. That was put on hold, so that's being rearranged for the coming days. We'll be linking in with the local resilience forum around that. Talking of the local resilience forum, or the LRF as it's known, we've developed that relationship over the past 12 months. We meet with them on a regular basis. And I think moving into winter around potential emergency or long-term situations, that's another good channel for us to use to amplify our messages and get information out there. And we're also looking to build a better dialogue with our counterparts in communications with the utility companies, which I know was a struggle last year, in that sort of joined up messaging and understanding what they were putting out and how we could help them. So that's an action we're taking forward, just to develop those relationships with our key contacts. We've talked about preparedness, which I think is key. It comes back to the difficulties people have when they're actually in an emergency situation when might already be cut off. So as Helen's touched on, we've got this social media campaign which got interrupted, but is now back on track for October around informing people that preparedness was talked about, and also doing some wider comms, which is in the pipeline around winter preparedness, whether that's what gritters do to what people can do, and just like being prepared. So there's quite a bit has happened. There is always more stuff to do, particularly around preparedness. I would take any questions you might have.
Thanks for that, Andrew. Questions, anybody? You see, you've stunned them all into silence. Nick.
I got some questions. Thank you, Andrew. Just a very simple question, I think. You mentioned weekly e-bulletin. Could councillors help to promote that? I think we'd be happy to.
Yeah, I think that would be most appreciated. Again, that's what an ongoing piece of work with about 10,000 residents who get a weekly bulletin now. We want to kind of expand that, particularly going into winter around these messages. So we're just working on how that's going to work, but certainly members could play a great part in spreading the word amongst our own community, signing up to that.
Yeah, maybe you got some images that you could send us, perhaps that would help.
Yeah,
Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah. And you say that work is taking place between the county council and parish councils to improve communication. Is that via the emergency plans?
Yeah, I think it's working alongside Helen's team, really, just to ensure there's that two-way flow of information.
Yeah, it's the things which are already happening in my ward and lots of other meetings and emergency planning. Yeah, fine. Oh yeah, you mentioned the emergency flyer that's going to be distributed in the emergency, and it says it will be distributed. I don't quite understand this. Distributed from council, fire and rescue, and parish council premises. So how exactly will it be distributed?
I think that's essentially just looking at what we did last year in terms of email the PDF out. Everybody needs it, and print as many of these out as you want. We can certainly look again at this distribution method. We're relying on people with printers, I must admit, to print out and distribute it. We can look at the best way that organisations want to receive it, whether that's electronically or in kinds of physical flyers. Happy to look at that.
And if necessary, would flyers be delivered to, for example, parish councillors, by car, for them to deliver, or if it came to that with the county council just do the delivering itself?
So if we brought a bundle to you,
Yeah. Would you bring a bundle to us to deliver, or would you just deliver them yourself, or would you?
I think would be well.
Yeah.
It's okay, Chair.
Yeah, of course.
At that point, I mean, many of us will recall during Storm Arwen last year that it was the combination of staff working with military personnel who did the leaflet drop to the houses that were impacted. So that was quite an extensive door-to-door leaflet drop. It was actually chatting the door and handing over the leaflet in most cases. We also sent out, I think, Andrew, if I've got that correct, we also sent out to as many workers as possible the actual PDF so that they could circulate that. So I think the short route that gives them more is that we look at, depending on the facts and circumstances, we look at whatever the most expedient approach should be. The more we can deliver bulk copies to parishes and so on for them to distribute, the better. But we respond to the facts and circumstances. The one thing I would highlight is that it's not the sort of thing that we could just print up those leaflets right now, because the key bit of information in those leaflets, in my view, apart from the contacts, the key bit of information is what support is available for residents, and really we're in the hands of the utility companies around that in terms of what compensation might be available if people need to book into hotels or otherwise. So and that information is really something that they will release to us, if I've understood this correctly, Andrew, when we're in the midst of that situation, because they're gauging what the situation is there. So it's something that we will always have to be agile around, because for me that's the key to information for residents and what they're entitled to when they go and book into a hotel. But we will only have that, I think, if my experience of the last time, we'll only have that when we're in the midst of the situation.
I think we're talking about two different things here. Because I think what our vision is that these leaflets would be delivered beforehand. So you might be talking about two, the kind of what I want to see is what Councillor Horncastle was talking about before, was these are the winter's coming.
Yes.
Weather's going to get bad, but these are the things that you might like to have in your house.
Yes.
Just in case, which we talked about before, radios and batteries and torches and camping stores. But we don't want to do it in such a way that it kind of we don't want to be too paternalistic about it, because it just turns people off. What the hell are you doing telling me how to live my life, kind of thing? It's all right for you living in a town where the electric's on all the time. So there needs to be a balance between these are the emergency numbers if anything happens. These are the things you might like just to have in your house, just in case. Tin food, you might want to make certain you've got a manual tin opener. But anyway, whatever's on that list needs to be delivered before anything happens. So if it does happen, and people have thought, oh yeah, there's some handy tips on there, then they're kind of protected and they've got all the numbers they need when the electric comes back on. And then there's another leaflet that says, if your electric's been off, these are the people you need to speak to. I think is kind of where we are with all this. And then we've got Brian, and then we've got Andale.
Just on that was exactly what I thought we were doing, is putting out a be prepared leaflet.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, would that tie in, when's the next edition of the Northumberland magazine?
It's coming out early December, first week in December.
So is it something that we could do, because the leaflets that we talked about before was easy printable leaflets, the parish and town council get on quickly, get information out, and it's a cheap form of print. We're not going to be able to afford to deliver one of those to each house. So could we do an article for that magazine with that information to get it in, and then we look at some specific leaflets as the event goes on, which I have to say, fire and rescue was absolutely fantastic in getting them out. Working with all the other agency partners, whether it's mountain rescue police, I think we can deal with that quite quickly through the communications team as we did the last time. But I think that the preparedness could go through maybe some magazine.
Yeah, that's.
It's a direct question about this specific thing.
Yeah, it is. My question was about the flyers we would put out in an emergency, because it's clear that that's what you're talking about in the report.
Yeah,
and it was a great answer, so thank you.
Right, Brian.
Thanks, Chair. Just to come very quickly on Councillor Castle's comment about readiness. I think that's what we're trying to do here. One of the things that we discussed in the task and finish group was to, well, I brought it up to utilise the bin wagons. Every wagon goes to every house in Northumberland, empty the bins. So if there's a message on there with contact details, or once again, that emphasises what you're trying to do on a paper trail. But if you're that hasn't got the internet, can write down the numbers, she sees the wagon going by, you know, there's another form of information as well. And if the magnetized ones, they can be put on as we know storms are coming. So thank you for that.
Wow. Councillor Dean.
Yeah, I can add that to that one. Actually, leaflet, that's the one place we deliver leaflets to everybody. Every household is the bin wagon. They can deliver leaflets saying, you know, this is a change of dates and everything else. Could deliver a leaflet as well. I'm not saying they will, but it's just little. And they just aren't, basically, some parishes are very good at getting information out, some aren't. So it might be appropriate if you ask county councillors which way is better to actually inform people in your areas. I mean, if we're doing something, I've got a fabulous Facebook page which does 10,000 take out to a lot of areas. However, there's some parishes who don't send anything out, and nobody reads that and anything like that. And you know, that's the difficulty. And I don't think you probably understand how communications work in the different areas, but that might be useful if we can tell you. And I'm grateful for even what Councillor Dodd said, but my belief is we should ban as candles. It sounds awful, but candles are so dangerous. And especially with old people. But you know, I don't know how you can put that, but it's one of the main factors.
Darkness is just as darkness is just as bad.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I really do. I really do to get a grip of this. So what we're talking about is the winter communication plan. Whether it's torches and candles or whatever. It's a, you know, it's a fair point. So I think where we are with all of this, Nick, is it a question?
It's a question about the about the communication plan.
Yeah.
Thanks. It says, the report says that all council news releases will be signed up by the executive director. And then it says that all other agencies referenced in those news releases should have sight prior to release, where practicable. Yeah. So we discussed that in the film review process. And I think we've been told that the signing off process was slowed things down quite badly. So will the other agency referenced in our news releases have to sign those news releases off?
No, the reason it's worded like that, my view and suggestion, Chair, is that they should just have to sign it in terms of putting this out. Here's a couple of information from, we need to sign this off first. I agree, it's slowly going down.
So we've got a slicker process than we did.
Okay, right. So what we're saying is we like the winter's emergency communication plan. What we think would be a good idea that Councillor Miller brought up, which I think is an excellent idea. Can we have an article in the thing that goes out in December, regardless of whether we're at a disastrous storm or not, or wherever we are? Can we have something in there, not written in any kind of condescending way, for goodness sake, that just says what we think, and I think, I don't know whether we'll put together to use the list,
Maybe we'll see
but
it.
perhaps someone could think about what, in an emergency, if you didn't have any power, in the short term, what you think we should have available to you.
Could I suggest maybe that article be looked at by the members that sat on the committee? And just have a read over it, maybe
Yeah,
we could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, it's common sense, you know, but there's a fair point about can. But you know, torches are cheap, radios aren't very expensive, and I know we're in this crisis. And that's why it's going to be, you're going to have to be very careful how you write it. Because you do not want people ringing up telling you, you know, that you're above yourself when this is, because what we're doing, we're trying to help people, we're not trying to wind them up.
There is a specific day, a couple of days in the social media campaign as well, and we've had that great conversation about how you make the message helpful and proportionate without adding people burden as they go, because we're going to cost of living. For some reason or other, every time I see that kit, there's a ball of string involved somewhere in it, and I've never quite figured out every parent has a kit, so you've got a ball of string in it.
Well, because what you do is you tie it to your door handle, and if it's so dark outside, you unravel it, and then you can find your way back.
That's how you get over this.
Honestly, Helen, I thought you were.
I apologize, Chair.
Yeah, there's a thought, and not to be condescending to public. Why don't we ask the question back to them? If there was a power cut, what do you think you would need?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, and then you're not preaching, you're not trying to tell people what they get, but just getting the mindset of saying, well, if the electric went up, what would I have needed then? So to throw the question back at them and let them make their own decisions on what they.
But with a, I think that's excellent, but I think we need to have a few suggestions, because some people might.
Well, actually, Councillor Lang came back with a good one. Well, if we use the fire brigade in that particular guidance.
Right, we've got all that. Yeah, Councillor Hall.
And one line about preparedness. The older generation were far more prepared than the younger keyboard warriors.
I take that deeply offensive.
Well,
Which one are you?
so, I think the plan, and I think what we're saying is we would like to see an article, which I think is a brilliant idea, an article in the next county-wide thing on preparedness. With, you know, if this happened, what do you think you would need? We think you might need
Whiskey.
except if you need to get out in your car, then you won't be able to drive. Anyway, so where are we now? Well, thank you. So I shall let the sanity of Mr. Nicholson bring us back down here. So we're now at
What programs, one thing, I think the Brian's point about the routes on the highway, look at that. Some indication that the Woodlands boundary, the January meeting. The department chair,
Chair.
but Councillor Dodd.
Yeah, I've mentioned this before, and I'm gonna working up on a motion, and it's becoming more stark to me, you know, and I tell you, so.
Can I say it?
Hashtag.
Back.
And I think that the people who we've talked to about the Storm Arwen are the same people we're gonna have to talk to. I'm not talking about big money or anything like that, but there's an awful lot, 30% of our woodland is dying. And a lot of people are clueless of what actually is going on. And we're gonna have a massive problem in a couple of years, maybe less, because this stuff I'm chopping down is dying from the inside. So we will not know. You'll see the ash trees that are only half in leaf, And we've got a massive problem. First of all, it's our roads that will be blocked. It'll be the telephone cables and the power cables that will come down as well, with a whole load of dead trees. I think we need a plan and we need to look at this seriously, because it's coming.
So can I, are we, is that something we can do, Sean?
I've read your comments into the officers who are preparing the order strategy, this as part of that discussion.
Right, okay, so at some point, can we bring that here? Can we?
It's due to come in January.
All right, there we are.
I'm happy with that, but it's a problem that's coming straight down the track, and it's exactly the same.
Right, I've got Cam, I've got.
I've just got a quick comment
Yeah.
as well. It's not just the work center and all of their areas. I live in a street which is full of old trees, right? And I don't think people in the houses realise how dangerous their trees can be. I've seen them come down in Stormrow and, you know, that all the dilapidated, we need something right across the board.
And I think you might find that quite a lot of people don't know what an ashtray looks like either, but anyway. Councillor Mather.
I'm gonna look at fire and rescue recruitment. Yeah. Some kind of report on that, how we can support fire and rescue and recruitment.
Okay, so there we are, urgent business hire not being told.
That brings them up to just a clarification. The last full council, minutes from this committee were presented. Myself and Councillor Dale, wanted to have a conversation or even have a little bit of an in-depth conversation around it.
That's not where you have in-depth conversations.
No, Chair, can I just finish? At the end of the day, I think I can't understand why we're presenting the full minutes at full council. If we can't participate within those minutes that we vote them. They're accepted here, they're presented to cabinet, then are presented to full council. What I wanted was a little bit of clarity from the officer of our role as we present our minutes to the full council. That's all.
I think it's just custom and practice that minutes go to full council. I think there's no need for them to do that.
We used to actually write reports to council every week. But it was felt it was a duplication of the minutes. So we stopped doing that and we sent the minutes up instead. So the original purpose was that the chair would present the reports that some officers would write. And members could ask questions of the chair on issues raised over a period of time. Sort of that. That's been lost, I think. That's my mindset, that at one time we could challenge and maybe get updates of where the meeting had taken place. But I know you kind of shut that off and said that it should be just accepted. But we can accept that away from full council.
It's at the discretion of the chair of the meeting of full council where you do. But the only thing you can challenge is the veracity of the minute. That's.
I'm not with you on that. I'm not with you.
I don't care what
But the officer, sorry, Chair. The officer hasn't said that. He's given guidance and as time's moved on, the way the minutes are presented. I agree with a lot of it, and that would be, we're being swept along with it. But we should be able to challenge in full council, not only for our own information and updates, but educate people in the full council. So the reality is, what I'm saying is that maybe yourself and the chair of the council should be reminded of what the officer could say. That's all. There's always been a nervousness of reopening the debate, and I think that for the business chairs, but particularly bringing it at the end of the council, I think there was a bit of nervousness about allowing that debate to be in council. Absolutely. But the original purpose was for the chair to present the report. And want to question about the.
So perhaps what's going to happen at the Constitution Working Group, I suggest if you've got if you want it done in a different way, then you speak to the person, your person who's on the Constitution Working Group, and say you actually want a way of commenting on things that have happened here in full council. I'm sorry, I'm not stopping here all night to talk about this. No urgent business has been brought forward. Thank you all for your attendance. If you want to chat afterwards, I do. It's really mild now.
I'll get my name.